Here at Pembrey, we are set for the final for the retro rallycross drivers. This ever eclectic mix of all manner of cars from all eras of rallycross, from Mark 1 and Mark 2 Escorts to BMWs and Peugeot 205s, Toyota MR2s as well. After the qualifying rounds, Gary Simpson, who's been the man to beat this year ahead of Tony Lynch, and Steve Cousins with his Peugeot 205, Brian Hardman and Simon Hart's Escorts 4th and 5th, and Paul Smith's Polo is 6th. The rain is falling and the grid looks like this, although Steve Cousins electing to start at the back, not with his Citroën AX, but a Peugeot 205. The Escorts of Brian Hardman and Simon Hart should be on row 2, but Brian Hardman missing with a mechanical problem, so it's a strange looking grid, but we go racing, and Gary Simpson, who has won every time out this year, leads the way. Tony Lynch, returning to the championship, goes second in the Toyota MR2, and Paul Smith third ahead of Steve Cousins, with Simon Hart's beautifully evocative Mark 1 Escort at the back of the pack as they come across the loose for the first time. Hart is all sideways. There is Steve Cousins in the, strange to him, Peugeot. Forsaking the Citroën AX for the 205, there he is, look, coming down now towards the hairpin. He's on the tail of Paul Smith as up towards the end of Speedway Straight comes Gary Simpson, this rear-wheel drive BMW 325i ahead of Tony Lynch with the Toyota MR2, the former Super National champion, and then Paul Smith under attack, look, from Steve Cousins as they go through together. Lynch in this car, there it is, a former rally car from Scotland, which he has made into a very competitive rallycross machine, but he's dropped in and out of the series this year, and now looking to try to salvage good points this weekend. So the cars make their way across the loose. No joker lap in retro rallycross. Didn't do it at the time, don't do it now. All these newfangled innovations, retro rallycross, trying to encapsulate how rallycross has been. Some of the cars built new for retro rallycross, others recreations of those that were there at the time. So the Escort Mark 1, for example, a perfect example of that. Gary Simpson's BMW here, a car that he has used in Super National in the past. Now, as it gets on a bit, moving into retro rallycross, but it's still a popular category. Volkswagen technician Paul Smith keeping Steve Cousins at bay. His Citroën AX that we've seen him in this year has been hugely successful now in this Peugeot 205. And Steve Cousins took 4 wins in the retro class as against super retro, which is where you find Gary Simpson. There is Tony Lynch coming through, but he's dropping back now from the BMW. Simpson pendulums his way out of the hairpin, brings the back round, fires it up the straight. Good fight though this for third place, because Paul Smith under attack is keeping Cousins at bay, but Simon Hart right there behind them. The Haynes of Maidstone Recreation Escort, the John Taylor colours, right there in 5th spot. Wipers on, the road wet at the start of the race. Not quite as bad the weather conditions now as we feared they might be, but it's still very slippery out there. Really does take you back when you look at all the different sponsors that Simon Hart has patched onto the car, making it a perfect evocation of what John Taylor's European Championship winning Escort was like. There is Gary Simpson then across the loose. The BMW 325i heads the pack. Very, very well turned out car this. He comes down now towards the hairpin. Former Armed Forces man out of the hairpin and onto tarmac once more. Cousins all over the back of Paul Smith, tries to find a way through as they go down through the chicane into the hairpin, but Paul Smith driving one of his best races here, withstanding the pressure despite the fact that Cousins is right there, despite the weather conditions. Gary Simpson is away and gone in the race lead. Cousins though now looks like he might be able to get up the inside at the hairpin. Onto the last lap goes Simpson, up the inside for third place goes Cousins. That means that Smith goes wide. On this increasingly slippery road once again, rear-wheel drive cars having a bit of a disadvantage, the front-wheel drive machinery coming into its own, and Paul Smith loses a place. It's hard enough in rallycross where you've got shale, loose, as well as tarmac. Now they've got the rain falling to cope with, making the surface change all the time, and Gary Simpson has backed the pace off a little bit now, trying to assess exactly how much grip he's got. There's more, obviously, on the tarmac, and he's only got a couple of corners to go, so he can back off now, stroke it home, and take yet another win. This will be 6 from 6 in Super Retro Rallycross. Champion-elect, you would say by now, Gary Simpson. He goes left, then right, then left, up towards the timing line. He's all sideways as the power kicks in. There is Tony Lynch in second place, but it's going to be another victory for Gary Simpson. Talk about 6 appeal. Over the line he will come. Gary Simpson, the winner, 6 from 6 ahead of Tony Lynch and Steve Cousins up from the back of the grid in the Peugeot, on target for 3rd position here at Pembrey. Gary Simpson, the race winner, ahead of Tony Lynch. A good return to the championship for him. Steve Cousins taking 3rd with Paul Smith and Simon Hart 4th and 5th. Brian Hardman, a non-starter. Steve Cousins then leads Retro Rallycross, pulling away from Simon Hart with Paul Smith 3rd. In Super Retro Rallycross, Gary Simpson, well, he's just dominant.